Simran.
And I'm Rosie.
Welcome to
Bluebird Whispers.
Thanks for tuning in.
Hi, Bluebirds. How are you doing?
Welcome to our second podcast episode. We hope you're excited as we are.
We are very excited, aren't we? So, how's yours doing over there, Harsi?
Over here in Canada, it has gotten a little snowy on the ground, and it is kind of still snowing today as well, which I'm actually very happy that it's snowing. I didn't expect it to be
Ooh.
snowing, honestly.
Oh my god, I've
I
never
had
seen
this.
snow. Can you believe that?
Really?
Really?
When you come over to Canada one day, you might be able to see snow.
Yeah.
But how's the
Anyway,
earth doing over there in Spain?
well, over here it's quite sunny actually. Well, of course now it's getting darker because it's afternoon, evening. But in Valencia and in other places there have been floods. So that's not so nice. Luckily not
Yikes.
here. Although they say it's gonna rain tomorrow, but you know.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I hope everyone's
So I
safe.
feel like I hope so too. But yeah, so
Oh, and
we're
I
gonna
also want to
start.
say before we get into it, if you're watching the video version of us, we're going to be looking down just so we can follow some notes because we have a lot written down for today's episode, a lot of research that we've done.
And if you're listening, we hope it's better than well, we'll improve.
Exactly. We'll get better with time.
Yeah. So let's get right into today's topic. Harsi, what is today's topic?
The topic of today's episode is climate anxiety.
Yes.
Now, for those that don't exactly know what climate anxiety is, the Handbook of Climate Psychology defines climate anxiety as a heightened emotional, mental, or somatic distress in response to dangerous changes in the climate system, but suggests that paying heed to what is happening is a healthier response than turning away in denial. So, denying that climate change is actually a thing, that's a very negative response to the whole situation.
Yes. Exactly. So
So,
we'll be talking all about this today. This nice ambiguous topic, because loads of people don't know what it is, and loads of people also give different definitions to it. So we know that there are many definitions of climate anxiety or eco anxiety, whatever you want to call it, but we're just going to go with this definition. And yes,
that's
so
okay.
why don't we start with talking a bit about ourselves in this topic related environment.
So, Rosie, have you ever felt climate anxiety, or do you still feel
Yes.
climate anxiety?
I have.
You want to explain a little bit?
Yes. Okay, so when I was in high school, I think it started. I mean, it's normal that we see normal. It's our daily lives basically, that we see how climate change is affecting our planet, our environment. Maybe not necessarily directly affecting us, but it is directly affecting other people. And I feel like climate anxiety comes from a space where you feel like you can't do anything about it, and you're just thinking a lot about climate change, about global warming, about all these catastrophes, and you feel helpless. And I feel like that basically sums up what it is. I used to feel so sometimes I was crying, you just don't know what to do, and you feel helpless. So I feel like I've always had climate anxiety since I knew about climate change, but now I don't feel it as much. But yeah, what about you?
For me, well, initially I started self-educating myself about the climate disasters and climate change in general, through just watching documentaries or reading books on it. So slowly, I guess I started building up the climate anxiety started building up inside of me, and how I'm using that is, well, through educating other people about these issues so that someone takes action for it. And so that's why we're here and we're doing this today. But it is like, and I am feeling a little bit better in terms of the anxiety. Like, it is a little bit lower in my head. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
not as heightened.
Yeah.
Um, but obviously there will be times when it is heightened. Like, say when during the summers we're getting very aggressive heat waves or something, that's when I would start feeling a little bit more anxious. Like, this is not the direction we should be going down. Like,
Yeah.
so it'll get heightened then. But right now it's snowing. Like, I feel so much better. I'm like, okay, like things are still okay. Like, we still have time.
Yes, we still have
So
time.
we just have to out for
Yeah,
the like positive outcomes, I guess.
exactly. I think the worst thing you can do if you have climate anxiety is feel like you can't do anything.
That's
Um,
true.
and just feel like, because then that doesn't help, does it? Just being like pessimistic about it. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, well, that's what we're here for, to talk about this topic, to make you understand a bit more about it, and to make you feel. I mean, we're not alone in this. Many people
Exactly.
are suffering from eco anxiety, from climate
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, and everyone has their own like perspective on it, obviously. But I feel like the most important thing is to acknowledge it, to acknowledge what you're feeling, because that's also
Mm-hmm.
something like you may be feeling it, but not knowing that you're having like that you have climate anxiety. Not
That's
knowing
true.
that it's a thing. I mean, I didn't even know that it was a thing until I heard
Mm-hmm.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
So just talking about it, doing your research, what you said. So why don't we
Yep.
dive into the first topic, which Harsey, you can start with that.
Okay, so I've read a couple of articles surrounding this topic so that we could also discuss it. The first one actually discusses climate emotions in terms of climate scientists. So
Hmm.
the survey or the research was conducted with a group of climate scientists. They wrote down like how they were feeling in terms of climate anxiety, and majority of the answers came back that most of them felt afraid. But the second most feeling, which I was kind of shocked that this is the second most feeling that the climate scientists have felt, was hope and optimism.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then the third most feeling or emotion was anger. So it's kind of like up there. Like,
Yeah.
afraid was the first one, which I mean, that makes sense. But hope being the second one is kind of. I expected anger to be the second, but hope was
Yes,
second.
me too. I didn't even expect Hope to be in the first three. Like what?
I know, yeah,
But
exactly.
better, better. I'm not
That
complaining.
is exactly, that's true. I mean, I guess as a climate scientist, you know what the outcome could be, so you're kind of ready for it. So you kind of turn that emotion into hope. Like, you're like, okay, we can do all of this to drive this
Yes.
emotion away from us. So you're kind of feeling hope. I guess
Mm-hmm.
that does make sense in terms of a climate scientist.
Yeah. So why are they afraid? Are they afraid like of the future? Like
I
of
guess yes. Yeah, the
mm,
future. So basically, like, since they are researching all these, so they're afraid of like what the future is holding, like what it has to bring forth in the next few
yeah.
years. As yeah,
It's basically like the movie Don't Look Up a little.
I was going to bring that. It is exactly like that.
Yeah. Cause
That movie has a little bit of climate anxiety in terms of, I think Jennifer Lawrence is one of the main actors.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so I feel like Jennifer Lawrence exhibits climate anxiety. She's scared. She knows what's going to happen, but no one's listening to her because there's people that are climate
Yeah.
deniers,
Yeah.
which
Exactly.
unfortunately they exist too.
She's a
Climate deniers,
scientist,
which is
right?
scary.
She's a scientist.
Pardon?
Is she in the movie? She's a scientist or not?
I think she
She looks.
is.
Yeah, I think she looks like at the sky. Like she
Yeah,
looks.
I think she is.
Yeah. So I've also seen loads of videos of scientist documentaries and stuff that they talk about all the research they're doing and how they find loads of like they investigate lots of things. They find
Hmm.
lots of result. How do you say that? Like their
Like,
conclusions, their
uh
outcomes.
huh. Hmm.
But they're never really brought to light. Like they never. I don't know. Like they know things,
Hmm.
but no one listens or no one sees it, or they don't really know how to tell people about it. Like I feel like
Mm.
the government has a lot to do with it.
Hmm.
Um. So, but I'm glad that they're hopeful. I'm glad that that's number two.
That I'm too. I
So
am glad about that too.
yeah.
But what do you have for us?
Well, I was looking on YouTube And I found
Mm-hmm.
this song called We Tried, written by Louise Harris, which is
Mm-hmm.
who is an activist. She's been doing activism with Just Stop Oil in the UK and other things. And this song I feel like really encompasses the whole topic of today. So let's have a listen to it.
The world is changing all the time, and you know it ain't right. Yeah, I know you think twice. And love, it takes you on a ride and leaves you with no respite. Well, I think I've done my time, but I don't want to cry. So take me where the bluebirds sing, while we lose everything. There's too much poisoning. And fly me where the birds still fly, 'cause smoke fills up our sky, 'cause we ran out of time. Oh well, we tried.
The roads belong to the British people, not a selfish minority.
We are in the fight of our lives, and we are losing.
Global warming, it's a hoax. I mean, it's a money-making industry.
When the wind isn't blowing, the sun isn't shining, how are people to heat their home?
But it's morally right to honour our promises.
Well, maybe this was meant to be. A mother wanted peace, and we were not conceived. Or maybe we were meant to win, but not enough good drowned out the sin. They watched the world cave in, but I can't work out why. So take me where the bluebirds sing, while we lose everything. There's too much poisoning. And fly me where the birds still fly, 'cause smoke fills up our sky, 'cause we ran out of time. Oh well, we tried. We tried, 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 we tried. Oh well, we tried.
So, Harsey, what do you think about that? What do you think about
I
this
mean,
song?
when I first came across this song, I thought it was a very powerful song in terms of the lyrics.
Yeah.
Like we tried, like it's true, like we tried. It's kind of in past tense, but we are still
I
trying.
know. Yeah.
But yeah, overall, it is a very powerful song.
I feel like it really makes you think about the future and how we will react if it goes badly, if the world does end, so to say. At least we will be able to say we tried. But hopefully it won't be like that. And hopefully we will say like we did it, you know. But Yeah, I really, when I heard the song, it really moved me. Like, also because the video she puts in the video, like in the song,
Mm-hmm.
are like it encompasses everything. It encompasses human rights. It encompasses the planet. It encompasses nature, animals, everything. Climate catastrophes, but also like poverty issues. Like third world country issues. Like climate change really is something that affects us all, and like this song, I really feel like it's a good song. So that's why I wanted to show it to you.
I
So
agree. I agree.
I hope, listener, you can tell us what you think, or at least, I don't know, be inspired by this song, by this activist who's done such an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully another time we can talk to her. That would be really, really inspiring, because she's a really inspiring person.
Okay. For this article, the title is A Socio-Ecological Perspective on Climate Anxiety in Children and Adolescents. So, this one talks about how not all children and adolescents are equally vulnerable to climate change or climate anxiety, because some areas might experience the worst of the climate catastrophes, whereas, for example, here in Canada, we're not experiencing much, so we don't feel like super anxious when it
Yeah.
comes to the climate. But obviously, like, we'd have to think about the people that are facing the worst of these impacts, and so when
Mm-hmm.
we put into that perspective, that could also heighten these emotions. And a greater proportion of young individuals in Turkey, Brunei, and India express they are very or quite worried about climate change compared to the children in the UK, Australia, and the United States. But this article is from 2022, so statistics could have changed since then. And then another study found that high proportions of youth reported to being very or extremely worried about climate change in the Philippines, India, and Brazil, and Nigeria. So,
So
I mean, yeah, that
yeah,
I guess that makes sense. They are facing
yeah,
like the worst of the impacts, and then UK, Australia, and United States are not facing the worst of it.
yes. I
I mean,
mean,
in terms of what we're seeing.
yeah, in terms of actually feeling the consequences. Um, yeah, but like the people in Valencia here, or in like other places in Spain where there's been drought, there's been floods. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
not until people actually feel, actually lose something, like actually realize that this is taking away their
Yes,
houses, this is taking away
exactly.
people they love, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when they actually are like, oh my god, like climate change. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
I feel like activism is also so important, because I feel like people don't realize that it's literally, it's not other people, it's you too, you know? Like, you're gonna feel the effects of climate change.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's very easy to forget this when we're living in societies where we're surrounded by daily life, work, school, all of the modern technologies,
Yeah.
movies, books. I mean, we're all just, I mean, it's hard enough to just be living your life, but it's
Mm-hmm.
important to acknowledge that this is happening, and this is maybe not directly affecting you right now, but it will affect you, or it will affect a place you love, or it will affect someone
Mm-hmm.
you love, or it will affect an animal, a plant, whatever you're interested in. I mean, food shortages
Mm-hmm.
and product shortages, because of this, because of these floods, um, people then realize, oh, you know, that country that makes this food for me, or like not makes it, but like this product I love,
Produces it?
which I
Yeah.
get from that country, I won't be able to get it anymore once that country is facing climate problems. So
Mm-hmm.
we're all connected, you know, like humanity, I feel like we're connected, but in a way we're not, we don't realize, like we need to
That's
realize
true.
that we need to help each other, and we need to be there for each other, and just that, I don't know, like how are we supposed to not find this important, you know? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
That's true.
But that's
And
really interesting.
it's good that you brought up like the case of the attachment, like if you're attached to stuff and that's when you start realizing that, oh, it's real and that it's a problem. Place attachment, it's initially like a feeling you feel, like say you were to go to a trip to, say, like this park. When you were
Yeah.
young, you went to this park that you really really loved, so you've connected to it emotionally and you have memories to that place. But once you lose that place, you're like, oh my god, like there's so many memories attached to that, so you're losing all those memories, and that's when you start to realize that it is a problem. So like,
Yes.
do you have any places that you feel attached to, and you feel like if you lose that you're losing, well, your memory?
The town where I go every summer, my
Mm-hmm.
grandparents' town, is next to the
Mm-hmm.
seaside, and I feel it's in the Netherlands, that town, and they have to build the, how do you call that? Like to stop the water from
Oh,
coming in.
damn.
Yeah, the dam. They're having to
Okay.
build it more like higher.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like very sad because to think that maybe in 100 years that town doesn't exist anymore, because literally Holland is one of the places, the Netherlands is one of the places that really gets flooded easily due to the sea level rise.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes me sad because I really love like going there in the summer, and all those houses are so pretty, and the architecture, the people, the culture is something I really don't want to lose, and I hope this planet doesn't lose. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it is scary because like, I mean, it literally, I don't know, like, yes, because we have the money and the resources to build a higher dam, but imagine that another place doesn't. I love that place and I hope that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. That,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be sad.
Yeah.
Um, but that's the thing. It's like when places around the world are facing these climate catastrophes, all we're doing is spending or well, all the governments and global leaders are doing is spending their money to
Yes.
fix that current issue
Fix the
rather than the
consequence.
root of the problem. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I know. Well, yeah, the Netherlands is a good place to take as an example because they are advancing in other things, like for example in renewable energies. I feel like what you're saying, like they're just addressing the consequences. Also, many people are not realizing that it's climate change, which is eventually leading to the sea level rise. And
Exactly.
I don't know, it's just very strange to think that people don't connect that. Like they don't make,
Mm-hmm.
how do you call that again? Cognitive dissonance, I think it's
Yes,
called.
that's what it is. It's cognitive
Yeah.
dissonance. Like they're not
Yes.
connecting to it. Yeah.
But then, for example, like many old people, they're just like, well, you know, what can I do about it? So I do understand their point of view because it's like, I mean, if you're not informed and you're not educated about it,
Mm-hmm.
how should you know what to do? So that's why it's also really important, I think, education, like educating at schools and stuff about everything related with climate change and sustainable
Mm-hmm.
future. So,
Mm-hmm.
but what about you? What's a place that you love that you think may be lost to climate catastrophes?
Well, the one that kind of immediately comes to mind, and it's kind of been at the back of my head ever since we went, it's Algonquin National Park here in Ontario. And the reason why I say that is because I feel like that was kind of a first um, for me, like in terms of activities and just going to. Actually, no, it was a first for me in terms of like activities. For example, like that was the first time I went canoeing.
Oh yeah.
And a funny memory with that is like, I think the fourth or fifth time or round that I went canoeing with some of my family members, the boat tipped over. So, there's like so much
No.
memories that are
Yeah.
associated with it. So I feel like if that's gone, it's going to be very heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And just thinking about
that's the one place.
and just thinking about this is you, this is me, but like all the other people that have memories in these places that we love,
Hmm.
like, it's just we all love, like, we all care about things, we all love particular things, and
Hmm.
this is all, like, everything we have, all the memories we have, they happen on this earth, so like, why wouldn't you
Exactly.
want to protect this planet? I don't know, it's like,
Hmm.
it's a bit hard for me to understand like why people do not care.
Hmm.
um so yeah.
But listener, like, if you want to comment down below, like any memories that you might have to a place that
Yes.
you fear will be lost, and that you might just feel a little bit more anxious if it was gone. Like, just comment down below, or you can email us about it. We
Yes.
don't have to share it with anyone either, but just let us know if there's any places that you feel attached to and you'd feel a sense of loss if it was gone.
Yeah, I feel like it's very heartwarming to know that we love things so dearly, like we all have something in our hearts that no one can really take away from us, because memories, hopefully they
true.
stay there forever. So that's very nice. And it's also, I feel like, lucky actually to have lived so many things in nature and so many experiences in the outdoors, because, you know, for future generations going the way we're going right now, they may not be able to experience these things. Like, I saw this book that a girl wrote about this little girl who asks her parents, like, oh, what's that, like looking at a photo, and it's like a tree, you know, and it's like, you don't know what a tree is. Well, maybe the future generations won't know that. Hopefully not. It's quite extreme, that situation, but
No, that brings to mind the Lorax movie.
oh yes,
Have you?
yes,
Yes, the trees, they're gone because I think they chopped it all down to
mm-hmm,
sell these items that they made out
yeah,
of the trees themselves. And
yeah,
instead they're selling oxygen bottles, making money off of it.
I know.
I'm hoping we don't get to that, and I'm
No,
hoping no one takes the idea to do that from here, but that's a very, very scary thought because me
yes,
personally, I I feel super like I mean not exactly how it just feels magical to me just to see like leaves changing color during the fall or them being coated with snow like
yeah,
and just losing that is it's going to be very heartbreaking. I can't even think about that honestly.
I know. And also to think that nature is so pretty and so beautiful, and it's really a place of like, from where loads of people get inspiration and get like, make their art, make their whatever they do. Also, if you're sad, or I don't know, you want to go for a walk, nature just really helps you. I mean, it really makes you feel human and makes you feel
Mhm.
lucky to be alive. And
Exactly.
how can you live without nature? Like, you can't.
I know.
Like,
I can't
I
imagine
mean,
a world like that honestly.
I say this living in a city and I don't see nature often, but
Same.
you know, but
But
still,
when I do see it like obviously it makes me happy, really
yeah,
happy.
yeah. So I think we can relate this really well with a poem I found, um,
Mhm.
that we studied at university. This
Mhm.
poem is called "When I Have Fears" by John Keats, and he's not specifically talking about nature and climate change because this was written in the 1800s, but he's from an age called the Romantic period, and these
Mhm.
poets really um touched on topics so like nature, just the sublime, everything related with like their surroundings, and really connecting with their inner selves with this, and being able to portray this through their words. I don't know, like how special it is to be oneself and an individual and to be alive basically. And this poem is about death. I mean, it's about him being
Oh.
scared of the future and about dying. But I feel like we can relate this really well with eco-anxiety and our fear of the future. So I'm gonna read it out loud. When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books in charactery hoard like rich garners the full ripened grain, when I behold upon the night-starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and think that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance, and when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relish in the fairy power of unreflecting love, then on the shore of the wide world I stand alone and think, till love and fame do nothing to nothingness do sink. So it's a very complicated poem, and it talks about many things, and I'm not going to get into all of that now. If
Mhm.
listener you're interested in this poem, you can look it up on internet. There's lots of information, but I feel like, I mean, it's an extended metaphor, um, just to death, suffering, wanting to become a great poet, the beauty around you, the love around you, how important it is to love certain things and to just have something you're inspired by, and that in the end, all of that superficial stuff, like fame, he talks about fame, he talks about
Mhm.
love. In the end, it's just you in this world, and that's why I think it's very important to also keep in mind, like, that you need to, I don't know, like think, like not be selfish, obviously, but
Mhm.
know that what you're doing is also for you and for the ones you love. So
Mhm.
I feel like in a way, this poem can be related to eco-anxiety. So this poem, what I wrote in class, is that it expresses personal feelings. It was a personal poem.
Okay.
And he writes about like dying before having achieved his objectives or his motivations. So I feel it's not a straight connection to climate change, but I feel like we can connect this because it's so like this fear that poets had and that we have and that many people have, and what you said those scientists had. Maybe what young climate activists need is support that is removed from the whirlwind of modern life. Romantic poetry provides this with its prophetic recognition of fear surrounding nature and morality, telling us that the only one who eliminates fear completely, or the only way to eliminate fear completely, is through action. So romantic writing offers a powerful analogue for thinking about climate change in the Anthropocene. And so these resonances of the same kind of feelings we are feeling through time, like across time, is quite comforting to know that people used to feel this way and we still feel this way. Maybe not 100% about the same topics, but just to know that, you know, even 200 years ago, people were feeling anxious and feeling this type of fear.
I think that's what I love about poems. It's like one person may view it a different way. Like the writer might have viewed it in a way that he viewed it, like about death and stuff. But we are viewing it in the sense of like, oh, like we're seeing that it could relate to eco anxiety and to
Yeah,
climate change in general.
yeah.
That poem honestly has a lot of depth. I feel like there's a lot of reading in between the lines as well. It's kind of unique on its own.
Yeah, that's why I love poetry. And that's why I think it's so cool as well that you and me are both studying different things, but that we can relate it to the topics we talk about here.
I'm gonna go off from still the previous article. This one line that I feel like we could also kind of relate to, and I'm saying this directly as a quote. As children grow into early adolescence, they may begin to more fully comprehend the threats that climate change imposes, potentially deepening feelings of anxiety. So when I first read this line, I immediately thought of Greta Thunberg. Of course, I obviously thought of her
Yes.
right away. But and I say this because when she started learning more about climate change, she started striking in front of the Swedish parliament every Friday, skipping
Yeah.
school, striking in front of the building so that the government or the world leaders would get the news, and people started joining her, and that's how the movement Fridays for Future began.
Yes.
And I mean, I could say the same for us. Like, ever since we started learning more about the threats that climate change has in store for our future, we've started acting on it even more, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So
I
when
agree.
I read that line, that I connected immediately because of like that drove us to learn more and to do whatever we can, because I mean it is our future and the future of future generations as well that is on the
Yes.
line.
Yeah.
Okay, when I read this line, also from the same article, education geared towards action rather than fear-based information empowers youth with tangible strategies that they can collectively implement. So when I read this line, I thought about like how many teachers or professors, when students ask them like what they can exactly do when it comes to climate change, what actions they can take, and they're like, oh, like I've I've heard this firsthand, which is why I'm saying this. They're like, okay, like you can't really do much because it's up to the global leaders to do something to take some action.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I immediately thought of how there's like success stories of how people have taken action. And now what I'm going to bring up is Rosa Parks. I feel
Oh.
like we all know her story. She refused to give up her seat in the bus to a white man. And
Yeah.
this led to her, I think, being arrested. But eventually, people started boycotting the buses in Montgomery, and that
Yeah.
led to a success because she took action. Other people started taking action, so that led to a success story. Another one that comes to mind is Malala, who tried to fight for girls' right to education.
Yeah.
Um, And what that led to was the National Embassy approving Pakistan's first right to free and compulsory education bill. Another success story from taking action. So I'm just gonna say, like, I guess I just don't like it when other people are like, oh, like you can't really do much. Like it's up to the government or the global leaders to do something. I don't
Yeah.
think that's true because
No.
you can see like people took actions because they were not being treated fairly and you got a success story from it. So that could do wonders for us too,
Yeah.
like if we all collectively started taking action.
And I feel like many people may feel different about other topics like racism and stuff, but in the end, those topics were also things that were sort of taboo or sort of not talked about a lot. Things that were seen as normal in the past to like sit separately from if you were a different color. Like it doesn't make sense to think about it now. And I feel like in the future,
Exactly.
people will feel the same about climate change. Like, how can you not do something about it? But that's why one person can make a difference, and it's so important to remember. Even if it is I mean, the thing is, you also don't know the impact you're having. If you're talking with a friend, that can also have an impact on that friend. That friend can talk to another friend. You don't know your impact.
And another thing that I wanted to bring up, in one of my classes, we read like an article written by, I think, not a millennial. It was a Gen Z article. So she basically talked about how terrifying it is, and obviously anxiety feeling it is, that the consequences of the climate crisis have been left for us to deal with. Adults keep saying that we are the generation to save the planet, that we were not the ones who contributed to the mess in the first place. So the author also mentions that there's no guidance that we're receiving from these elders or adults, but we're finding out about how to use reusable cups or to secondhand shop from social media. So there's no real guidance how to move forward. This
Yeah.
article is just so real, and it's just a call out to anyone who's just dumped the climate crisis on us, on the next generation. Like we're just gonna have to deal with it. Like
Yeah.
it's our problem now.
I feel like many people like also say sorry for that. Like they're saying sorry, but at the same time, it's like they can still do something about it. So I don't know. I feel like we all need to just come together in that sense.
That's true. I don't like how they're just like, oh, like now we can't do anything about it. Like it's your problem.
I know.
It's still everyone's problem.
Yeah. I mean, if you have grandkids, you know. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
on that topic, in my class we're reading Frankenstein, and this was also written in the Romantic period, what we were talking about before. Just to sum it up, it's about this guy that creates like a monster, but this monster is made up of like all different human parts, and he's like, oh my god, I made a person out of dead people. So it's like a euphoric moment, but then slowly he comes to realize like his the consequences of his creation, and how this creation ends up doing horrible things to horrible things to people. And also this monster, in brackets, talks to him. He's called Victor Frankenstein, the guy who creates this monster, and the monster tries to tell him like how he feels, like is alone. No one understands him. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to get food. Like, what is he supposed to do? No one treats him well. And Victor Frankenstein doesn't want to listen. He's not acknowledging his creation. He's just trying to ignore it. So I feel like we can also connect this with climate change, because many people are not how do you say that? Acknowledging the consequences of their actions. And on another note, this book was also written in a time when in the Arctic it was so freezing that a ship could stay stuck in the ocean. And so that's how the book starts. Like it starts in a ship, like being stuck in the Arctic. And so I took this from a document which says like the disappearing ice is part of the so if we talk about this novel being written now, it would be impossible, because for the Arctic to be so freezing, so cold that a ship gets stuck, it's not realistic anymore. Like that is not possible anymore. And so that's what it says in this article. It says the disappearing ice is part of the powerful trajectory of global warming that began with the Industrial Revolution and has increased ever since. There is no mystery associated with this. It is a direct result of the increasing amounts of greenhouse gases that we release into the atmosphere, now more than 9 billion tons of carbon each year. We understand the physics of the greenhouse effects, and the increase in temperatures directly tracks the increase in atmospheric carbon dioxide content. The year 2015 was the warmest year on record until 2016 beat it the following year. Temperatures are now increasing at a rate never before seen in the geologic record. The impacts of this warming have been huge. Glaciers around the world are melting at alarming rates. Together, Greenland and Antarctica now melt about 400 billion tons of ice per year. Combined with the warming and expansion of the ocean water, this is now making sea levels rise at accelerating rates. So it also talks about how this literally is because of human impact and the Anthropocene. And Anthropocene is basically, if you don't know what it means, human impact, like the consequence of human actions. So basically, this book is really good. I didn't think about climate change the first time I read it, but if you think about it, acknowledging the monster you created, is the monster actually a monster, or are you the monster for creating the monster, you know? And also acknowledging the temperatures of the time it was written. Mary Shelley, who wrote the book when she was only 19, wrote it in a time that she went to Geneva, like in Switzerland, and it was so warm and she was enjoying her summer so much. But then suddenly there was a volcanic eruption, and it was suddenly very cold and suddenly very dark. So actually, the romantic poets did, and romantic authors did feel the consequences of climate change. So even if we don't think it, climate change started a long time ago. And it is true that we can get very overwhelmed with all of this, but there's also like a message of hope in this story. Like, you learn about this lesson in the story, another guy hears this story, and it's like hopeful because he learns from it. So we need to learn from our mistakes and not get overwhelmed by all the bad news, but give it that it's an important lesson to look at the positive and at the hopeful things and learn from our mistakes, what I said, and take responsibility. We need to take responsibility for all of this. So I feel like the Romantic period really is a good time to reflect on literature, poetry, and all of that, and connect it with how we're feeling right now. I also feel like it can be comforting to read a book and like feel identified. So
That's true. That is true. With the relation to the Frankenstein book, I remember we did kind of go over it in one of my classes as well. And this is like music class. So we were talking about the romantic, I think this was the romantic period as well. And the professor just brought up the fact that, well, in the book, he created the monster. And the professor was relating it to how now we are creating like these robots, these AI, like, are
yeah,
we
that's
creating
also true.
monsters?
Yes.
Exactly. So that's
Yeah.
another way to look at it, I guess.
Yeah. Also, to think that many creators of this AI technology are stepping out of it and they're like neglecting it. Many people who created these apps, like Instagram, they're not using it. Facebook, they're not using it. It's strange, isn't it? Like, they're like leaving it us up to it. Like, they're giving it to us. Oh, yeah, here, this is. I don't know. But just to think that the Romantic poets were so, they love nature so much. Like, all the paintings you see of the Romantic poets,
That's a good point, yes.
yeah, it's just like one person walking in nature, one person being surrounded by nature, really reflecting on the individual. And I feel like we can really reflect that also with our individual power, what we said before, like we really have power, like one person has power.
To end off one of the articles that I was previously discussing, um, the article does state that connection to nature is correlated with greater emotional well-being, greater ability to regulate challenging emotions, and reduce stress and improved self efficacy for young people. So, this is exactly the reason why at times I would find myself just yearning to be out in nature or surrounded by nature because unfortunately, I also do live in a city, so there's so many buildings
Yeah.
around us. And just at times, I'm like, I just really want to escape and go
Yeah.
be surrounded by trees, biodiversity, anything. Like, I just find myself in that place sometimes.
Yeah. I have exactly the same thing. It's just sometimes it's just our lives are so filled up that we forget to really appreciate nature. So also when I
Exactly.
can and I'm walking in a park, like just a city park or just the trees around me, I already appreciate that little bit of nature. So
That is true. That is
also my
true.
flowers on my balcony, every little thing.
It is
A few
also
days
the
ago there
little
was a
things.
bee. A few days ago, there was a bee on one of the flowers, and me and my mom were like really happy because we were like, you know, one little thing, but it
Oh,
already like isn't. I don't know. Like it already touches you a little bit. I don't know. I don't
no,
know how
that
to
is no,
say
I
it,
get what
but
you mean. That is so true. Well, on this note, I also want to say, um, I have started getting into squirrel watching, which is
oh,
kind of it's random, but I just I think this started somewhere in the summertime. On campus, I would just have a seat like on these swing sets, like whenever I don't have classes, and I would just see these squirrels running around, burying their food, getting ready for the winter time. It is so adorable, and it makes me feel so calm in the moment. Like
oh,
it
that's
just takes all the worries away, honestly. And two instances. Once I saw a squirrel munching on the leftovers from a muffin wrapper on top of a garbage can up close, and it was just so adorable. And then another time, I saw it eating a full cookie in its hand,
what.
and it's munching on it. Yeah,
But where did you find it?
it was just wandering around on campus. I was walking on my way back to catch the bus, and it was just there. It was
Oh,
just munching on a full cookie.
oh.
It's
I mean,
so
the same goes.
adorable.
I love pigeons. Like many people don't like
Mhm.
pigeons, but like
Mm.
it's our fault that they're so filthy and like so sick.
That's true.
So
Hmm.
yeah, I just feel sad sometimes for pigeons, but I really love pigeons. Like I feel like every little thing related to nature can like just like I don't know anyone who like doesn't like something of nature. I don't know.
That's true. Yeah.
I love the seaside as well. Like just
Mm-hmm.
looking at the sea,
Mm-hmm.
hearing the sea.
It's Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like I mean whoever's tuning in, I just hope that you also find the time to connect to anything
yeah,
out there. Like there's so much magic out in the world that we're so like blinded from it. We just don't notice it. We need to take the time to notice these things because these are also the little things that could drive us to take action to
yeah, exactly.
mitigate climate change.
Yeah,
And we
yeah,
just need to make time for that. And on
totally.
this topic, I also want to bring up the biophilia hypothesis, which for those that might not know what that is, it's essentially like we humans are innately drawn or connected to nature. And we were since birth. It's just we've grown up in cities surrounded by buildings and nature has
Yeah,
just disappeared from our sight.
and also just think about like prehistoric times we lived in nature. Like, and
Exactly.
also I feel cities are great. Like with everything that they give us, all the opportunities they give us, all the people we meet, all the
Hmm.
places that exist in a city. But in the end, I feel like if we think about relaxation, or if we think about, um, I don't know, like places that are destined to trying to like just be on your own or be
Hmm.
with yourself. Like I feel like that's always in places that are in the need, like more with nature around you, like spas, resorts, like anything like that.
Hmm.
Like I just love nature. Like, well, that's
That's
why we're
true.
doing this, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, And just one last article that I did want to discuss.
Mhm.
This is titled The Psychology of Climate Anxiety. And a neat thing that they mentioned, which I never, I mean, I've thought about it briefly, but I've never really connected it in terms of this until I read about it in the article. They said that COVID-19, the pandemic, of course, we're all devastated that it did take place. We've also lost loved ones to it.
Yeah.
It kind of just, I mean, yes, in the moment it was depressing. Of course, it was just depressing. There's nothing, you might think there's nothing good that came out of it, but there are some ugly truths that did come out of it. The air cleared up for the first time in a long time in India and in other polluted areas. And it's been noted in a news article that greenhouse gas emissions dropped by 17% as commutes came to a halt and people stuck closer to home. That's an like an ugly truth that came out of the pandemic. And then
Wow.
another one is that while we were all in lockdown, some places started seeing wildlife coming back and reclaiming urban habitats, which you obviously don't
Yeah.
see that a lot. When we're out on the road, we don't see that, but they started reclaiming it while we were in lockdown.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I also remember after being in lockdown, once we could go out, I was just walking, coming back from school, and like there was no one on the streets, and that's so strange here because there's always so many tourists, and it was like, oh my god, like, what if it was always like this? Like, people, I feel like realized more like how to enjoy where you live, you know, and how to appreciate where you live. COVID was really, I mean, it wasn't good, but it made us realize certain things that otherwise we wouldn't have realized. So
Exactly.
yeah.
And also the art, like near the end of this article, it also mentions that there's various types of, I guess you could say, like climate deniers in a sense, or people that diminish the climate threat. And there's like a few categories that they put these under. You have people that find scapegoats through projection, people who idolize charismatic leaders that support climate denial,
Yeah.
people who repress and suppress awareness, reaction awareness, where people are denying the reality while simultaneously giving expression to it. For example, those who become environmentally destructive to prove to themselves that they do not care or believe in climate change, as an attack to people who do believe that it is a
Yeah.
thing. Hopelessness, saying that it's too late. So, like, what can you possibly do? Apocalypticism, those that are excited by the idea of the end of the world and allow the bad people to be punished for their behaviors and saying that we can start again or be better, which honestly I didn't know that there were people like this, but
That's
it's
crazy.
down here.
Yeah.
Or manic defense behaviors, such as those who seek distraction through increasing addictive behaviors and consumption. So, this
Wow.
article just sums up like these are all the types of people who would
People.
diminish that climate change is a thing. Like, these are the
Yeah.
other categories that people fall under.
Wow. That's crazy. I feel
I
like
know.
also many of these people, it's not really about climate change, it's more about feeling superior or feeling like, I don't know, or feeling inferior. Like, it's very strange, but I feel like it's very psychological. Like,
Exactly.
it's very human, this, to feel like you need to prove yourself to someone, or you need to compete against someone. Like, it's strange, but in the end it's everyone's planet, and it's what we said before, like for everyone this means something else, but in the end it is one planet, and like we all live on it. So it's strange that people are like on purpose trying to prove that they're like neglecting what's happening. There's this book called It's Not Just You, written by Tori Tsui, and it says how to navigate eco anxiety and the climate crisis. So I got this book not long ago. I was in the bookshop and I saw it, and it just came in, and I haven't read it yet, but I did like this virtual course called Reforesting for Peace, and yeah, I heard her talk, this girl, and she was very inspirational. She said how sometimes being an activist is very energy consuming, and you can feel very tired or very like helpless, or like what you're doing is not enough, or just sometimes you don't have any more energy to do something. But she says that that's normal, and it's normal to take some time off whenever you need it. but that, it's not just you, and that in the end what you're doing is something good, so you don't need to like feel bad if it doesn't go the way you plan or whatever. So I feel like this book is very helpful in this topic, and like if you want to read it, be my guest. This girl is very inspirational. She's a very good speaker, so I'm sure she's a very good writer as well. And also Greta Thunberg here says the world is in desperate need of this book. So, I would read it if I were you. I'm going to read it for sure.
I'm gonna look into that as well. I'm intrigued. I don't think I've heard of that book actually, so I'm glad you brought it out. A book that I'm still reading. I'm still in the middle of reading, but I thought I'd bring up because it is kind of impressive. So it's called The Diary of a Young Naturalist, and I'm reading it online, so I can't really show the physical copy. The Diary of a Young Naturalist by Dara McAnulty. So this book follows Dara, who was diagnosed with Asperger's/autism at the age of 5 years old. Dara discusses how hard it's been for him to communicate to others about things that he likes and that he's faced bullying throughout his life. He says, I think near the start of the book, that nature has become so much more than an escape. It's become a life support system for him. And like throughout the book, he just mentions how he likes to bird watch with his family, and him and his family go out to this island, and how he just finds just the wonders in nature, and that calms him. That's an escape for him. I'm just impressed by that, honestly.
Yeah. Nature's so powerful. Like,
Exactly.
also nature is a reflection of like, I feel, humanity. Like, nature can be, it's not always beautiful. Like, it can be very destructive, and it can
Oh,
be,
that's true.
yeah, it can be very like crazy.
Okay, now we're going to be talking about the word of the month before we get into that. I know you want to pull it up. Okay, so we've briefly sprinkled this over throughout the episode, the word of the month. The word that we're setting for the month, actually, and that is hope. Rose, do you want to explain, like, why did we choose this word as the word of the month?
Well, I feel like throughout this episode we've talked a lot about bad things, good things, nice things, not so nice things. But in the end it all comes down to what we need to do with this. So once we have our information, once we have like, educated ourselves, what do we do with it? And I feel like what we shouldn't do with it is feel sad or feel depressed or feel like helpless, what we said before. But we should feel hope. Hope for the future, hope for everything. Many activists, many scientists, many researchers, everyone on this planet is doing for our future, for more sustainable, more green, livable planets. And I feel like hope really encompasses like this power that we as humans hold, and just that we need to always have hope.
And so we do have a book that
Yes.
also touches on this a lot, and it is The Book of Hope by Douglas Arava and Jane Goodall.
I love
So,
this book.
me too. This book really like changed my perspective in general on how I view the environment and how I kind of also feel hopeful now.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite a coincidence that this book is called The Book of Hope, and we're talking about hope. But Jane Goodall, I feel like, I mean, all the things she's done, I remember to reading something that people told her like, oh, don't do that, don't go, I don't know where she went exactly, but like to work with the chimpanzees,
Oh, Gombe, I think.
Well, people used to say like, why would you do that? Like, you're not gonna do anything. Like, what are you gonna do? Hope. One person, what we said before, can do so much, and she's had such a big impact on many young people, many older people. Also, when she used to do that, there wasn't really an age for activism yet. Like, it wasn't really, climate change wasn't talked about yet that much. So, I feel like this book is very, very, very good in that sense, to just see all the goodness that's in the world. Just remember all the people that are doing stuff, and that you can do something too. Grab your passion, grab whatever you're passionate about, and just do something. Listen to a podcast, for example, ours. Um, read a book. I don't know. Observe
Watch
nature around you.
documentaries. Yes,
Yeah,
observe nature.
educate yourself. Just anything. Like, the thing is to not feel helpless, to not feel, I don't know what another, like, the, how do you say that, the contrast of hope is, maybe doom or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just don't, it's normal to feel that way, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but it's just important to feel like in the end there is hope. So
And some things that I just kind of want to highlight from the book itself that we could also kind of discuss. Um, Jane says, and I quote, "When we focus on the future, we do one of three things. We fantasize, which involves big dreams that are mostly for fun and entertainment. We dwell, which involves focusing on all the bad stuff that might happen. This was the official pastime of my hometown. Or we hope, which involves envisioning the future while recognizing the inevitability of challenges."
all these emotions exist, all these ways to think about our present and our future and our past exist, but in the end, what do we do with it? Just, we need to hope. So
That's true.
we need to
And
acknowledge what she says. We need to acknowledge the challenges. I mean, it's not
mhm,
like it's not a perfect world at all. But at the same time, there are near, like, well, I wouldn't call it perfect, but there are very good and very impactful people, powerful people doing powerful things and using their voices, using their platforms, using their talents to make a difference. So the
mhm.
same as Jane Goodall writing this book. So yeah,
And Jane also like had like a brief discussion with Archbishop Tutu. Um, Archbishop states that hope is being able to see that there's light despite all of the darkness, and that hope does not deny all the difficulty. There is a lot of darkness, but our actions create the light.
um, but I mean, at least we're doing something, and yeah,
I mean, I feel like
pessimism is
if
not nice. Like, to feel
exactly.
pessimism. I did something at school about this. Like, is the future of the planet utopian or dystopian? And
Mm-hmm.
what would that mean? Because what is utopian and what is? Because I mean, it depends on perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
But we still have time. Like, I don't know if you heard about the time clock in New York, the climate clock, something
I
like
think I
that.
might have. I think I have. Yes.
I mean, you can look at that in two ways, like pessimism or optimism. People walk past
Mm-hmm.
it and are like, "Oh my god," or "Oh my god," like we have to do something.
Okay, two things that I want to say on that. Well, going off of this quote that Archbishop says, if someone were to just sit there and have all these facts and research just flood them with bad, like not bad but negative information that the
Yeah,
world could be ending, or that they might lose all their places that they feel connection to, that would make you feel worse. But I feel like if you put that emotion into action, you'd feel better. You'd feel like there's still hope, there's still something that could be done, rather than just
yeah,
sitting there and doing nothing and complaining about it. So I mean, I'm grateful that we have the platform to do something like that,
yes,
um, and that we have our own rights and freedom to take action and
exactly.
not,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, and not feel doomed
Not feel trapped.
necessarily. Trapped, yes, trapped.
Yeah,
And the other thing I wanted to say about the New York climate clock, it's true that the intergovernmental panel on climate change, or the IPCC, did state that we have roughly 5 years, so 2030, up until 2030, until we can turn things around. Otherwise, climate change would be irreversible. That statement itself is very scary,
yeah,
but
yeah,
like you said, you can look at it in one of two ways. You can take action, do all you can to stop this, or you can just sit there and complain about it. One more thing from the book that kind of taught me more about hope in general is, I think I think either no, Jane. I think Jane brought this up in the book while she was being interviewed. She says that there was this one girl that was being taken to Auschwitz, and that people had told her that she wouldn't make it out of there alive, but she had heard from someone that they would be liberated by Christmas. So she had hope in her to keep going. But doctors would come in to check on her every single day with this idea in their head that she's gonna be dead when they come to check on her. And her roommate, not roommates, but other people who were also in that same room with her, they also thought that she was gonna die like very soon. However, when she heard that they were going to be liberated by Christmas, she kept on that hope. So she survived until Christmas. Christmas Day came. They were not liberated. The next day she died. So we could look at this in one of two ways. She kept hope
Oh
for
my god.
so long. She kept hope for so long because she knew in her head that she was going to be liberated by Christmas. That kept her alive. But when she heard that that wasn't the case, she unfortunately died.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah. Hope is very powerful. I mean,
It is very
if we just
powerful.
keep telling ourselves we can't do it or nothing will happen or nothing will change, then it's not only, I mean, we feel horrible if we do that and we speak like that to ourselves. And I mean, you're not doing anything helpful really. So I don't know. I mean, people being optimistic is already helpful, I feel like. And people just talking about it with an open mind, talking about climate change and just what they think, what they feel. Debating is also very important. Just speaking your mind, speaking your, I mean, that's very sad, that story. I didn't expect
Yeah,
her
it
to die.
is. I
But
know.
yeah,
I mean,
our
we could
bodies
just
are
we can
powerful as well. Like our
exactly
minds.
our mind,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
It's the mindset. She kept that
Mhm.
mindset and that kept her alive. It's honestly very touching story too that that
Yeah,
was the case.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um and I just wanted to say, like, many before, like what we said before with the romantic era and all of that, many before us have loved and appreciated nature, but now it's even more important to transmit this love into care. So what we said, thrifting, going to markets, going to local shops, talking with others, that's very important. Knowing how you feel, realizing how you feel, and realizing how other people feel about certain topics, and seeing how the world is slowly improving and trying to support sustainable and ethical practices. So that's also very important. Ethical companies, and also just research, do research, and connect what you love with your passion. So everything we talked about, really. So just don't forget, and just, you know do whatever you can.
I mean, okay, one thing that has been on my mind is that we us humans tend to care about so many things that
Mhm.
will not or just don't matter like in the long term, I guess. But we're failing to care about things that do honestly matter in the long term. And
Yeah.
that's also the idea of like why we tend to overlook that the climate crisis is a big issue. We just don't care enough about it because we care more about economic demand, no,
Hmm.
economic benefits, market share, I don't know,
Wars.
like wars, yes,
I mean, there's
wars.
many things. There's so much happening in the world. I understand. We can feel so stressed. Like, I felt it.
Mhm.
Eco anxiety is
Mhm.
real. Like,
Mhm.
not only eco anxiety, but anxiety about everything related with our future. But yeah, that's why it's important to just remain hopeful and think about what you can do to help. Even talking at it with your professors, talking with your colleagues, talking with your if you're a teacher, with your students, wherever you work, just using wherever you are in life and seeing how you can improve something.
Mhm.
And that's why it's very important to just start with one thing. So, like, for example, I'm not gonna buy plastic anymore, or try to, or I'm not gonna try to buy new clothes anymore. Just
Yes.
things like
And
that.
if you really, yeah, like if you really do want to buy clothes, check out thrift stores. Like,
Okay, guys, so Bluebirds, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you. Wherever you are, whoever you are, we love you. And thank you so much for your support. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and all our streaming platforms if you want, and if you want to support us, that would be so nice. And also just to say that we are open to any inquiries, open to any messages with any advice you can give us, or any questions you want us to talk about next episode, any topics you want us to talk about, anything. So thank you so much for listening, and see you in our next episode.
See you next time.
Bye, Bluebirds!